What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. This is Kim Dave, the one place where you get a front row seat on everything fashion, DIY and bits and pieces of my life since fashion school. My name is Priscilla, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to draft the patterns for a simple A-line wrap dress. If you'd like to see how to make these patterns, keep watching. If you aren't subscribed already, join the DIY fam, hit that subscribe button down below, give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to see more pattern and sewing tutorials. It's occurred to me that you guys really like pattern tutorials, and it makes complete sense because once you really have the pattern sorted, the sewing is something that can be learned rather quickly. So if you'd like to see how to make this pattern, keep watching. And without further ado, let's jump straight into this tutorial. This is a pattern tutorial for a simple A-line dress with long sleeve. The sleeve is actually going to have a tie-up detail at the side, so meaning I would have to open up the basic sleeve that I have and include that strap pattern later on. So I got myself the following tools just to make this whole process go really smoothly. I got a few things actually. So the first thing I got was pattern paper. I just got this entire roll and I'll link it down below. I got my bodice, the front, the back and the sleeve. I have separate videos for all of these and I would link them in the description box. I also got pen, pencil, scissors, eraser, my marker pen, my pattern master, my set square, the usual suspects that we would always need during pattern tutorials. So the first thing that I'll be doing is to make the front panel, and I've taped down my front bodice block and I'm going to trace around literally everything. So I'm going to mark points around the bust, the waist, trace around my shoulder, trace that top half, and then transfer my darts from the block onto the fresh pattern paper underneath. So my method for doing this is to use a pin to puncture a hole through those 4 points that a dot normally has before connecting them together. So I'm just going in to draw the dot lines after drawing in my waistline. So at this point, I don't know why I forgot to add that additional 4 points to make it a whole dot, but I realized later on, and then I went ahead and I brought back the block and I punctured that bottom point to make it, the complete dot shape. So after making that hole with the pin, I'm going to go ahead with my marker pen to complete my front dot. So as you can see here, I only traced the top half because we're going to change the bottom silhouette to make it, the A-line that we're familiar with. So I'm just drawing in my bust line and writing what this particular pattern is before drawing in that A-line silhouette. So you're free to decide how wide you want yours to be. Just be conscious of your fabric. So you also need to decide how long you want your dress to be and then add 1 inch for seam allowance. I went with 36 inches because I wanted the dress to be on the shorter side. Now we're going to go in to draw a horizontal line, which will become your hemline. So I don't like having sharp corners around like side seams of things. I like to make it a bit curved so it just folds nicely later on. So we're going to extend that waistline by 10 centimeters in order to ensure that the dress actually wraps around the front. So once you've marked that 10 centimeter point, you're going to draw a line to reach that point. So after doing that, you're going to connect that 10 cm mark to your hemline to sort of create the new center front for this dress. So once that is done, we need to create our neckline. As you can see, I did this in pencil first before going in with my marker pen, but ensure you leave about 5 centimeters to attach your strap. So I'm just going ahead to double check that it's actually wide enough before drawing in my neckline. So you can make yours deeper, you can make yours a bit higher. I decided to make mine a little bit middle, not too deep, so I don't have to worry about my cleavage showing when I have these dress on. So once I've drawn my neckline, connected that 5 centimeter point, I'm going ahead to draw in my green line and write in any other information I need. So this is what the front panel looks like, and you will need to cut 2, one for the left and one for the right hand side. As you can see, I've marked my hem point, I've indicated that 1 inch hem allowance, I've added my sleeve notch which I transferred from my bodice block. I've added any necessary info that if I give this pattern to someone else, they would understand what they are looking at. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around except the hem, because the hem already has a 1 inch allowance. So I'm just going in with my pattern master and my marker, and I'm adding my 1 cm where crucial. Just be cautious of this waist point not to have like a sharp angle. I just went there to refine the curve so it actually is a smooth curve around your waist. So once I am satisfied with this, I'm going in to add a notch on that front point, because we're going to make a facing later on, and that notch is going to become very important at that point. So I'm adding 1 cm all the way around and ensuring everything looks nice and neat, and then going ahead to cut it out. So this is what the front panel looks like, nice and clean, all cut out, looking very pretty, before I go ahead to make my front facing. So if you guys are used to my channel and used to my videos, you know I just do my facing by tracing around the neck and the front or the back points depending on what part of the garment. So I've put fresh pattern paper underneath and I'm tracing that front line. I've marked my waist notch. I've marked any other notches that would be important for me later on. So I'm just tracing in the neck line, as you can see here, tracing in my shoulder point, but the shoulder width is 10 cm and not all the way to the end of the shoulder of the front. The next thing to do is to connect that shoulder point all the way to the hem. You can draw yours as a straight line. You can add that sort of curve around the waist. It doesn't really matter because that's going to be inside of the dress and it wouldn't show. So I'm just going in to add my grain line as well as indicate that notch that I created on the front panel earlier on. So I've also drawn in my waistline and I'm going to write in any information I need. So this is the front facing. I would need to cut 2, one to go with the left and the right hand side of the front. And after this, you would cut it out. So this is what the facing looks like against the front panel. I'm just checking to see if they actually match and everything works. So I cut them the same length because I'm not going to be lining this dress. I'm just going to sew that hem and turn it inside out. Don't worry, I have a separate sewing tutorial coming for this pattern. So the next thing to do is to make the back panel, and I'm going to trace around the front. As you can see, I've pushed in that 10 cm extension which the front panel has. So I'm just going to go in and first of all trace the back curve, because you know that one is different from the front. So I'm just using dashed lines to indicate the back curve onto the fresh pattern paper that we have underneath here. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to grab my ruler and trace the shoulder and the side seams. But I also need to do the neckline as well. So I'm going to mark 1 inch down from that point and just draw a very shallow back neckline, because you want the back to be higher than the front. You can have yours just as low, but I wanted mine to be high so the shoulder doesn't keep falling down. So once that is done, I'm going to draw in my arm curve, my side seams, the hem, any other important info that you know that back needs to have. Don't forget your bust and your waist notches. Don't forget to get that waist nice and curved. We don't want any pointy points. No, we don't want any pointy points. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead and drawing my hem, mark any other notches I need to mark, add my seam allowance as well as my dart. I don't know why I forgot to add my dart earlier on, but I'm just doing that quickly here. So the way I transferred the dart for the first front side, that's how I'm doing it for the back as well. I'm using a pin to puncture a hole through the bodice onto the pattern paper underneath, and then go in and mark those points and then connect them together using a ruler to create the dart on the back of this pattern. Once that is done, I'm going to go in and draw my waistline, which ideally should go through the middle of the dart. I'm also drawing in my bust line as well as write down any necessary information on this back panel. So I went ahead and I added my 1 cm seam allowance, not outside of the line that we traced, but inside, because remember we traced it from the front, which already had that 1 cm seam allowance included. So I went ahead and I cut it out. Because it's the back and I don't want to seam on the center back, I decided to write that fold line there because I plan to cut the back on a fold. I added how many I need to cut, which is 1, added any other necessary info that is important for the back. So the next thing to do is to create the back facing, and just like we did with the front, I'm going to trace around that neckline point down the center back and along the shoulder line. But you have to get that shoulder line the same length as the front facing, meaning it has to be 10 centimeters wide. So I'm just going in to mark that 10 cm point to ensure that it's not longer or shorter before going in to refine those lines using my pattern master and my marker pen. Now I'm going to go in and create a curve that connects that center back line to the shoulder line, and I've just done this simply and easily with my pattern master. I'm also going to add in my grain line, and because the center back of the dress is on a fold, the center back of the facing needs to be cut on a fold as well. So once that is all done, you've written down on the info you need, I'm just going in to cut out my facing using a pair of scissors and just checking that it actually looks all right and that it actually fits the back of the pattern. So the next thing to do is to make the sleeve. I have a separate tutorial on how to achieve this basic sleeve sloper or block, whichever you're familiar with, but I'm just going in to trace the head, transfer my notches and any other important information I need. And once I'm done tracing around that head, I am going to change up the shape of the actual sleeve body. So I'm just going in to finish that off, not forgetting my front and back notches. They're really important because it will help when it's time to join the sleeve to the dress. So I'm also going in to transfer the bicep notch. I'll transfer the elbow and the wrist later on, but you have to decide on how long you want your sleeve to be. I went for about 26 inches in total, and then I'm going to draw a straight line instead of the sort of caved in line that the basic sleeve has, because I want the sleeve to be like straight, so when I tie it up around the wrist, it creates this balloon effect on the top half of the sleeve. But just be sure that both sides of the side seam, so this side closer to me and the other side, are the same length. That's just something that you should be sure of before connecting the hem together and finishing off the sleeve. So the last thing I did here was to draw in all of the lines, the bicep, elbow and wrist lines, add the seam allowance inside of this trace line and cut it out to complete this process. Finally, I made my waist and sleeve straps. The waist strap is what goes on the waist of the dress, and the sleeve strap goes on the sleeve of the dress. So I just did it quickly. It's quite straightforward. It's just to make a rectangle with however dimensions that you were satisfied with. I have mentioned how long and how wide these are earlier on, but you can make yours thinner, you can make yours wider depending on your preference. So these are all the patterns laid out, nicely labeled, and indicating how many I actually need. I'm going to have a separate sewing tutorial to actually test if these patterns work, so stay tuned for that. Keep your eyes peeled for that. But so far it's been fairly easy to make. It had a similar principle to my blazer dress pattern or sewing tutorial, which had that same wrap around effect in the front. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. However, if you would like to see the sewing tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up, comment down below all of your questions, suggestions or ideas, and until my next video, keep being creative and have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.